The restaurant had been reserved under a name that shook stock markets. Yet the first ones to step inside were three tiny figures holding hands, their shoes scuffed, their coats slightly too thin for the evening chill, their faces carrying a courage far too big for their age. The hostess froze, the soft piano music kept playing, and across the room a billionaire CEO looked up from her table, expecting a late, careless blind date partner, only to lock eyes with little triplets who seemed to carry the weight of the world in their small shoulders. In that single moment, something invisible cracked open, and a life built on control, contracts, and caution began to tilt in a direction no amount of money could predict. If you believe that kindness still matters, that second chances can arrive in the most unexpected ways, and that even the hardest hearts can soften when love walks in quietly, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. The CEO had arrived early, as she always did. Being early meant being prepared. Being prepared meant staying safe. Her life had taught her that unpredictability cost too much. She had built an empire from nothing but relentless discipline, a mind sharper than steel, and a heart she had carefully armored after years of disappointment. This blind date was already a compromise she barely tolerated, arranged by a board member who worried that the woman leading their company had no personal life to speak of. She sat there, composed, elegant, untouched, coffee growing cold, rehearsing polite exits in her head. She expected a man who would try too hard, talk too much, or see her wealth before seeing her humanity. What she did not expect was three children standing where a grown man should have been, staring at her with a mixture of fear and hope that made her breath hitch without warning. The triplets had practiced their walk all the way from the bus stop. They had counted steps, reminded each other to stay brave, and repeated the reason they were there like a prayer. Their father was sick, too sick to leave the apartment, too sick to risk losing the one chance he had been given to meet someone kind. He had been nervous about the blind date, but hopeful in a quiet, careful way. When the fever spiked and his strength failed, the children had made a decision that felt enormous and terrifying. They would go instead. They believed love was important enough to protect, even if it meant stepping into a world far bigger than them. From the CEO's seat, the restaurant blurred around the edges. She noticed the way the children clung to one another, the way one of them held a folded paper like it was something precious, the way their eyes searched her face not for approval, but for permission to exist in her space. She felt an unfamiliar tightening in her chest, a sensation she had learned to ignore in boardrooms and negotiations, but which refused to be dismissed now. Her instinct was to stand, to signal staff, to restore order. Instead, she stayed seated, frozen not by confusion, but by something dangerously close to empathy. The children moved closer, each step hesitant yet determined. Their presence drew stares, whispers, curiosity. The CEO became acutely aware of the absurdity of the scene, a woman worth billions sharing eye level with three children who owned almost nothing but hope. She learned in fragments and gestures that their father had wanted this meeting, that he believed she might be kind, that illness had forced him to stay behind. There was no manipulation in their explanation, no demand. Only a quiet apology for arriving in his place, and a promise that they would not stay long if they were not wanted. This was the challenge she had never trained for. There was no rule book for responding to sincerity unguarded by adult defenses. Her life had been defined by people wanting something from her money, her power, her name. These children wanted nothing but understanding. The CEO felt exposed in a way she had not since childhood, back when she too had been poor, invisible, and afraid of asking for space in a world that seemed uninterested in giving it. The memory rose uninvited, of a time when she had learned to survive by becoming untouchable. She let them stay, not because it was polite, not because it looked good, but because something inside her refused to send them away. Time slowed as the restaurant returned to its rhythm, yet the table felt isolated, like a small island of fragile honesty. The children relaxed inch by inch, their shoulders dropping, their eyes brightening as they realized they were not in trouble. The CEO listened to their story unfold in careful pieces. Their father was a single parent, once full of plans, now worn thin by responsibility and illness. He worked hard, loved deeply, and worried constantly about giving them a future better than his present. The blind date had been a rare step toward hope, one encouraged by friends who believed he deserved happiness too. As the minutes passed, the CEO felt her carefully scheduled evening dissolve into something unrecognizable and profoundly human. She noticed how the children watched her reactions, measuring her warmth the way one measures weather before stepping outside. She found herself softening her posture, her voice gentler than she remembered it could be. She had not planned to care, yet caring arrived without asking permission. Still, fear lingered beneath the surface. She knew how quickly attachment could lead to pain. She knew that opening a door, even slightly, could invite chaos into a life built on precision. Part of her wanted to end the evening kindly but firmly, to return to her controlled solitude. But another part, long ignored and starved, whispered that this moment mattered more than comfort. The children eventually shared that. Their father had given them a note, the folded paper held carefully all this time. It explained his absence, his embarrassment, and his gratitude that she had even agreed to meet him. It did not ask for sympathy. It simply expressed hope that kindness might bridge the gap created by circumstance. Reading it, the CEO felt her eyes sting, a sensation so foreign it startled her. She realized how rarely she had been addressed without expectation. In that moment, the blind date transformed into something else entirely. It was no longer about romance or social obligation. It became a quiet reckoning with who she had become and who she still had the chance to be. She saw in those children the courage she had once possessed before the world taught her to hide it. She saw in their father, unseen but present through their love, a reminder that strength did not always look like dominance or wealth. The evening ended not with grand gestures, but with something far more powerful, a promise of connection. The children left lighter than they arrived, hope no longer trembling but steady. The CEO remained seated long after they were gone, staring at the empty chairs, feeling changed in a way she could not yet define. For the first time in years, she did not feel alone by choice, but by circumstance, and she wanted that to change. Days later, her routine felt hollow. Meetings blurred, decisions felt distant. The memory of 3 small hands holding onto belief refused to fade. Against every instinct that had protected her for decades, she reached out. Not as a CEO, not as a benefactor, but as a human being curious about another. She learned of the father's condition, his resilience, his quiet humor even in pain. She learned that life had not been kind to him, yet he remained gentle. Their first real meeting was nothing like the blind dates she had endured before. It was awkward, honest, unpolished. He apologized for everything, and she surprised herself by reassuring him without calculation. They spoke not of success but of survival, of fear, of the strange courage it takes to hope again after disappointment. The children watched from the edges, sensing something fragile and precious forming between 2 adults who had almost given up. The challenge did not vanish overnight. Illness does not disappear because kindness appears, and walls built over years do not crumble in days. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, fear of vulnerability resurfacing when things felt too real. The CEO struggled with balancing her world of responsibility with this new, tender reality. The father struggled with guilt, with feeling like a burden in a life so grand compared to his own. But change began quietly, the way all lasting change does. Through shared meals, through listening without fixing, through showing up even when it was inconvenient. The CEO discovered that her wealth could open doors, but her presence mattered more. The father discovered that accepting help did not make him weak, and the children learned that bravery sometimes leads to miracles even if they arrive slowly. As time passed, the CEO's public image remained composed, powerful, untouchable. Privately, she softened. She laughed more, slept better, allowed herself moments of stillness she had once dismissed as wasteful. The empire she ran did not collapse because she let love in. Instead, it gained a leader who understood that compassion was not a liability, but a strength. The night that began with confusion and discomfort became the turning point of several lives, not because of money, or influence, or dramatic declarations, but because 3 children believed their father deserved a chance, and one woman chose not to turn away. If this story has been stirring something inside you, if it reminds you of moments when kindness changed your path or when you wish you had been braver, please take a second to engage with this video. Like it, share it, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. Your interaction helps keep stories like this alive. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Comment below with the word hope if you believe that love can arrive in unexpected forms and that even the smallest acts of courage can change everything. In the end, the CEO learned that blind dates are not about seeing the future clearly, but about being willing to see what stands right in front of you. The triplets learned that their love could move mountains, even if those mountains looked like powerful adults with guarded hearts. And the father learned that sometimes, when you are too weak to walk toward hope, hope will walk toward you instead, holding hands, unafraid, and ready to knock on any door that might open.